Prix. I'm actually really hyped. I think it's going to be not too tricky for the win. I don't think there's going to be super competitive for that. But outside of that, there's quite a lot of storylines I'm very much looking forward to delving into and talking about a little bit more. How are we all doing? Can see Sarah in the chat already. Hello, Mr. Car Guy 112. Good morning. Afternoon for me, but I'll allow it. Probably in a different time zone. How are we all feeling? Are we looking forward to the Austrian Grand Prix? Of course, it was drama here last time. Remember Max Verstappen and Lando Norris came together here last year? There's nothing to say that we couldn't see something like that again. But this time Lando Norris is at least starting ahead of the pack. So maybe he will be okay from that perspective. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be very tight. It's going to be tense. I'm a little bit worried for Lando. I'm a little bit worried for everybody, really. Gabriel Bortoletto starting in the top 10 as well. Hello, Jellyfish. Good night. Hello, Anna. How's it going? There we go. We are live. I did just want to check I wasn't talking to myself. Sometimes it happens. It happens. But we are there. Let me quickly get everything loaded. Continue to live timings. And we are here for 71 laps of the Red Bull Ring. I am hopeful that it's going to be a little bit of a midfield battle, it feels like, this one. Not so much that this is going to be too sort of tense up front, but I do think this could be quite the midfield battle we have on our hands. Those final point scoring places, super up for grabs for sort of 5 to 7, 8 drivers, I would say. All of those point scoring places available to them. Hello, new studio first race. It is indeed. Oh, I've forgotten to get changed. I've forgotten to put the Formula One merch on. Got the Gymshark top on instead. Will Lando hold his position at the end of the first lap? See, that's the thing, isn't it? He's very much known for not holding on to leads for very long, but I feel like he's just been so quick this weekend. Like, it has been a true dominant performance from Lando Norris this weekend. No one's really been anywhere close to him. And I know that the yellow flag at the end of the session, Pierre Gasly spinning, did mean that we didn't get to see a lot of the drivers put in their final flying laps. I think Oscar Piastri was the one, right? If he'd have put in a final flying lap, would he have been able to get closer to his teammate? He thinks yes, very much so. Whether or not he'd have been able to get pole position, I don't think so. I think Lando Norris's lap was just ridiculously quick. And Lando said himself afterwards, he was just really happy with the lap that he put in. So you have to give it to Lando. But Piastri starting beside him rather than behind him, I think opens up a little bit of a different play into the first couple of laps. We've seen that Piastri can make some moves, though. You think back to Monza last year, where Piastri just went for it, ended up giving Charles Leclerc the opportunity to win in Monza last year. Maybe we'll see something similar again. Charles Leclerc's right in the middle of the two of them. Maybe it will be Charles Leclerc that benefits the most. We've seen the two McLarens touch last time out in Canada. It's going to be very tense. It's going to be very close. I think, yeah, Lando, as long as he gets off the start well, it's his race to lose. He has been so quick off the top. I think that Lando's bad start has become a bit of a myth. Can't remember his... That's very true. I think it's just from pole position, isn't it? He's got a little bit of a record from for losing position from pole. But as you say, like... You've got to qualify on pole for that to be a thing, right? So you've got to show that you've got pace to be in that position in the first place. But there we go. Oh, thank you. There's a few subscribers coming in. Appreciate that. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. On our way to 130,000 subscribers. Oscar and others could finish the lap yesterday. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We didn't get to see the real qualifying pace of some of those cars towards the top end, which maybe, opens the door a little bit. Helped out Pierre Gasly in that. Oh, no, sorry. Helped out Liam Lawson in that. Although the RB car was very, very quick nonetheless. Red Bull looks slow today. I don't expect Max to be in the top 5. Bad start only happens on his pole. It's very true. Let's have a little look then at the qualifying positions and delve through those first and foremost, because Lando Norris starting from pole position, that's the one, right? It's the interesting position to be. Oh. They're interviewing one of the Red Bull mechanics, I see. I was wondering who that was, but yeah, Lando Norris starting from pole position. Again, like, that's the thing, right? Starts from pole, got a little bit of a bad reputation from pole, but has been so quick this weekend. I just can't see it being anyone else other than Lando Norris winning this Grand Prix. I think he's just been so incredibly dominant. And as we kind of saw yesterday, and as he slightly discussed, he sort of talked about it here and there, it's a track that suits him. It's a track that he likes. It's a track that he's got history with. It's a track that he's delivered on before. So there's nothing to say, and there's nothing in the history books to say that this track in particular should be a bad track for Lando. If anything, the opposite, right? This is exactly what he needed after a very disappointing Canadian Grand Prix last time out. Ferrari look themselves once again. I think this is the first time this season where Charles Leclerc has really looked like he could be in the mix for the victory. Off the top of my head, like, Charles Leclerc's had a really slow start to the campaign, considering where we thought that Ferrari was going to be. If you look at the Drivers' Championship, I don't think anybody predicted Charles Leclerc to be down in 5th 10 races into the season. So it's been frustrating from his perspective, but at the same time, he's starting to click with that car once again. And it's annoying, right? Because he was so good last season. At this kind of stint in the season, there was a middle portion where it was basically Leclerc and Piastri dominating, getting wins. Monza, Azerbaijan, Monaco, like, they were the two that were really kicking into gear. About this point in the season last year, it was Leclerc and Piastri that we were looking at. And I'm glad that Leclerc is once again maybe entering a period of form. It's just a shame that he's never really started a season with that period of form, apart from maybe 2022, and then it disappeared towards the end of the season. So Ferrari just can't seem to put together a full campaign of races, can they? They either start slow and get better as the season progresses, or they start quick and then fall away. Like, there's never quite 20 races where the Ferrari car looks good. I mean, even last year, Charles Leclerc started to dip off the pace towards the end of the year a little bit. That middle portion of the season was the highlight. That Monza upgrade massively helped, don't get me wrong. But then, it went to McLaren, started winning a few more races again. Max Verstappen started, putting together one of the ridiculous drives of the season in Brazil, and then just couldn't quite be Ferrari's campaign once again. So I feel for Charles Leclerc, because he is such a ridiculous talent. And I think one of the best drivers, if not, I was going to say the best, but that has been Max over the last few years. Like, you look at this stint, 2022 to 2026, like that period, those 4 seasons that we've had with this regulation of car, it's hard to say that there's been a driver better than Charles Leclerc other than Max Verstappen. Like, Charles Leclerc, you could easily slot in as the second best driver within that four-year span. But again, it's just never been delivered a car that has been anywhere close to what he's able to really achieve, to be honest, and what he's able to do inside of the car, I don't think. Is the Constructors' title considered done and dusted? I think so. With Piastri starting 3rd as well, you look at the lead that they have got, almost double the points of 2nd place Mercedes, and Mercedes don't look like the team that are going to pick up that many points. I think Canada... This might be wrong, Canada the first race of the season where McLaren didn't come away with the most points because of Lando Norris's crash and because the two Mercedes cars were on the podium? I think that might be right. That might be wrong. But I think, off the top of my head, that is the first Grand Prix weekend. So last weekend was the first Grand Prix weekend where McLaren weren't at the top of the standings in terms of the points they gained during that specific weekend. But then you come to this weekend, and Mercedes, who did pick up more points than McLaren last time out, don't look anywhere close to the pace of those front runners. And instead, it's Ferrari that have kind of taken that position. I think the thing that's going in Piastri's favour and also in McLaren's favour in terms of the standings is that even though they are sometimes not the fastest car, and I think the McLaren across the board has generally been the fastest car, don't get me wrong, but when it isn't, sometimes it's Max, sometimes it's Ferrari, sometimes it's Mercedes, and McLaren are never not at least the second fastest car, you know? Mercedes and Ferrari have had weekends where they've been the fourth or not fifth fastest car because the Williams car has sometimes been right up there. So the consistency of the McLaren car is what's put them so far ahead, light years ahead of the rest of the standings, in my opinion. I don't think it's necessarily that the McLaren car is that much quicker weekend to weekend, but when it is the quickest, it is ridiculously dominant. And maybe even with the upgrade that they've brought this weekend, they're going from a position where they are really quick to just absurdly quick. You know, we're looking at, could the second half of the season be like Max Verstappen style 2023, where Lando and Piastri just go out and win everything? Possibly that upgrade coming to the McLaren car. But so far, the first 10 races of the season, as I say, even when they haven't been the quickest car, they've been the second quickest car, and that's the consistency that they need. Hello, Kelly. How's it going? Evening. Literally had to get up at 7 a.m. today to watch the race. It's all right. It will be a good one, I promise. I feel like Austria, for some reason, I always get good vibes when we're in Austria. I always get good vibes. I feel like there's always going to be a good race. Or if not, something interesting will happen. I might be wrong. There's probably races in the past that you can point to, but it just fills me with that like good vibes. Whereas sometimes you look at a Grand Prix circuit and you're like, I feel like this might be kind of a slow weekend for want of a better weekend. Lewis Hamilton starting in fourth place, much better from him actually. Considering he was still quite negative about his time at Ferrari, he's already starting to talk about 2026, and I think rightly so. He's starting to think about 2026 and beyond. He was talking about how the Ferrari team are really more focusing, well, from his side of the Ferrari team, they're more focusing on getting him comfortable, setting him up in the car properly, understanding his positives and negatives with the car setup and what he wants within a Formula One car. So I think that's absolutely fair from his perspective, and the season is kind of over for Lewis Hamilton already. I think a win, I know he got that sprint race win in China, but I feel like a proper Grand Prix win, as diminishing as that is to the sprint races, a proper Grand Prix win for Lewis Hamilton would just set this season up to be, you know, exactly what he needs to then go into 2026 with confidence, with himself kind of settled into the team. And Ferrari would have expected that kind of thing coming into this, right? Ferrari would have had expectations from a seven-time world champion joining the team, especially considering how much money they have paid for Lewis Hamilton to join the team as well. They would have had certain parameters that they were hoping would happen. Of course, you come into every season, you hope to win the championship. But outside of that, I think Ferrari will have expected to get, you know, a win or two here or there, or at least show those signs of life in Lewis Hamilton's drive. And I think actually finishing top four here, being in and amongst it, maybe, you know, holding on to Charles Leclerc a little bit. As Hamilton said himself, he is coming into a car that Charles Leclerc knows inside and out. Charles Leclerc's had it for a very long time. He's been there throughout this entire regulation cycle. Whereas actually, Hamilton is sort of relearning every single track whenever he goes there, because the car that he's been so used to driving in the Mercedes, and that's sometimes a bit of a negative with staying at the same team for so long, is that you get so accustomed to that car. changing now, and I think Hamilton moving over to Ferrari, it's been much more difficult switch than he was imagining it to be. George Russell starting in 5th, of course, won here last year, won last time out in Canada. I think it's the first time in George Russell's career where he could go back-to-back victories and back-to-back victories year to year, if you know what I mean. Like, back-to-back in that he's won the last 2 races in Austria, and also back-to-back in the fact that he's won the last 2 races this season. I don't think he's done that before. I can't pick out a time that George Russell has done that. I mean, he's only won, 5 races over the course of his Formula 1 career, but if he can go back-to-back, that would be absolutely incredible. Again, I think he'll need something like what happened last year to play into his favour if he does go on to be a back-to-back winner in Austria, but he's right in the mix once again. I think George Russell this year has just proven, okay, I can get the maximum out of the car. Even if the car's not incredible, I can get the maximum out of it. I can make sure we go home with some points, and I can make sure that, Mercedes are competitive in the Constructors' Championship, for instance. 2nd place in the Constructors, the majority of that is down to George Russell. Liam Lawson, the fastest Red Bull driver. How's about that? After being thrown out 2 races into the season, he is now quicker than Max Verstappen in the sister team. And again, I know that we didn't get to see Max Verstappen do his final qualifying lap, but still, Liam Lawson's starting there in 6th place, Max Verstappen behind him. Once again, Red Bull are like, what are we doing here? I know that they're building the entire team around Max Verstappen, and I understand the reason why they build that entire team around Max Verstappen, but the second driver seat is again being talked about. Yuki Tsunoda, not even out of Q1. Liam Lawson, the fastest Red Bull car. Insane, isn't it? It's just absolutely insane that the ebbs and flows of that Red Bull team. Max Verstappen does start just behind. 7th place. If Max Verstappen was to finish in 7th place and Norris and Piastri to finish on the podium, is that then Max Verstappen out of the title race? We're sort of holding on to it just about at this point, right? He's 43 points behind Oscar Piastri. It's still within realms of possibility because that's within 2 race wins. I know that that's a holy amount of points to get in 14 races. But if he drops to sort of 50 plus points behind Oscar Piastri, do we call it there and then? I think Max Verstappen even said himself that he's kind of called it already anyway. But do we as fans kind of call it then? And is it then actually just a 2-way title fight between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri? I think so. I think Max Verstappen needs another sort of dream scenario to happen, similar to what I was just saying about Russell, really. Needs some sort of dream scenario, needs to really get that Red Bull car flying today. It's going to be tough, though, from that position. Gabriel Bortoleto starts inside of the points. Still no points on the board for Gabriel Bortoleto. Been a little bit disappointing at portions of the season, I would say. Not massively so. I don't think we should be, talking about Bortoleto possibly losing his seat or anything like that. But Formula 3 champion, Formula 2 champion, back-to-back rookie seasons, winning those championships. There was sort of a lot of hype around Bortoleto coming into the season, and rightly so. He is incredibly quick, but just taking a little bit of time to really click into Formula 1. He is in a Stake Sauber car. It was the slowest car last season by a considerable margin, even though they're now ahead of Alpine in the Constructors' Championships, mainly down to Nico Hülkenberg sneaking some absolutely ridiculous finishes, thanks to things playing into his favour, like that red flag where he was on the soft compound tyres and just managed to scream through the pack was beautiful from Nico Hülkenberg. But Bortoleto, hoping that he can do the same thing. It would be really nice to get his first points on the board. I don't think he deserves to be on 0 points. If it was me, I'd give him a point just for being there and being really good. So let's hope that he finishes inside of the points. Going to be tough, though. Kimi Antonelli starting just behind him in 9th. Pierre Gasly starting in 10th. Probably should have started higher, Pierre Gasly. He was saying, if he hadn't had that spin in qualifying, he thinks he had the pace to go a lot quicker than he did on that provisional lap. But again, Q3... can't complain too much starting inside of the points. Fernando Alonso, though, starting just behind. I mean, Fernando Alonso points, it just feels like he's got that rhythm back now, doesn't it, Fernando? I know this start of the season was ridiculous. He was incredibly unlucky and even said it himself in his own words in Monaco. Like, how on earth is he this unlucky throughout the season? But Spain came along, got Spain, got that done, and then sort of carrying a little bit of momentum now. 11th place is not too shabby at all. Definitely points on the cards for Fernando Alonso this weekend. Albon had damage to the floor of that Williams car. We were expecting a bit more, to be honest, but damage to the floor, picked that up through turn 7, I think he said, during Q1. And then from there, it was always a bit of a task trying to get him any further up. So Albon starting 12th, but again, such a consistent point scoring finisher this weekend, such a consistent point scoring finisher this season. I think could definitely pick up those points and use that Williams' pace to his advantage. Then behind that, Isaac Hadjar, also been a really consistent points finisher. Has managed to score points in 4 of the last 5 races, and even when he didn't, he was in 11th place, so knocking right on the door of points. We know what he can do at this point. Certainly my rookie of the year so far, Isaac Hadjar, starting 13th place. Franco Colapinto under a lot of pressure, 14th, so he will want to be buzzing forwards, won't he? There's a lot of pressure on Colapinto to perform. So starting 14th, I think we could see some dive bomb moves at the beginning of the race from Colapinto. Some last-ditch tackles maybe to try and get some points. Then Ollie Behrman starting in 15th place. That's when you start to look at it and go, oh, maybe you're just a little bit too far away from the points, but maybe the little bit of strategy. We'll wait and see what tyre compounds people are on. Lance Stroll starting 16th. Esteban Ocon starting 17th. Yuki Tsunoda starting in 18th place. Ooh, we continue to talk about him. We continue to point out Yuki Tsunoda not quite doing what Red Bull would want him to be doing. Again, you look at the Constructors' Championship now, 162 points for Red Bull, 155 of those from Max Verstappen. So, Tsunoda, and Max Verstappen did a very good job of putting Red Bull higher up in the Constructors' Championship for a considerable amount of time, but it was going to come to an end at some point. You can't win the Constructors' Championship with one car. You just can't. Even if it is Max Verstappen, and even if he is absolutely ridiculously quick, you cannot win the Constructors' Championship with one car. And Yuki Tsunoda's just still not there, is he? Still can't quite get to grips with that Red Bull. And then Carlos Sainz starting in 19th place. Also a damage to his Williams. Like both of the Williamses. Maybe like they were just set a little bit too low. I don't really know like how both of the Williamses managed to pick up damage during Q1. That's sort of something that they need to have a little look at. And then Nico Hülkenberg, he said himself, made a mistake. And on a racetrack like this, where the lap times are so short, you make one mistake and you're kind of done and dusted. So Nico Hülkenberg down in 20th place, but probably should have been higher. And considering the season that he's at least starting to have, should have been higher inside of that position. But that is our starting 20. Has it started yet? Not quite. No, we are about 5 minutes away from the start of the Grand Prix. Why is Williams sucking recently? A little bit of, it's a combination of things. Yesterday was both cars managed to pick up damage. So there's not really much you can do about that, right? Oh, incident involving Oscar Piastri failing to follow race director's instructions has been dealt with. No further investigation. Was keeping an eye on that, but no further investigation on Oscar Piastri. So all good from his perspective. That was on the lap coming to the grid. Kevin seems happy in WEC. Checo to Cadillac. Cool. Throwing out some big moves. Checo and Bottas in Cadillac would be the best midfield driver lineup. Very consistent. At least got a little bit of a tenacity about it, hasn't it? Very much experienced. Would it be better than Albon Sainz? It's a debate that you could have. I'm sure Red Bull really regrets dropping Checo. I mean, that's what Checo has said himself. So Checo also seems to think that Red Bull regret dropping him, so quite possibly. Love the channel. How's your Sunday going? Not too bad. Not too shabby. Getting underway very, very soon. If you haven't hit the like button, that would be absolutely amazing. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you're new to it as well. And I will quickly just have a little look. There we go. We're all good. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's get that loaded for myself as well. Shall we double check that everything is ready on the race board? Boom. There we go. Oh. Driver messages not quite going to the bottom. There we go. Here we go. Yeah, that incident. Risk of rain for this F1 race is 0%. No rain whatsoever. Air temperature 30 degrees. Track temperature 49.7 degrees Celsius. It is gonna be a hot one. Like one of the hottest races. You know, we're normally talking about these kind of temperatures when we go to like the desert tracks of the Formula One calendar, but we are there. Started watching my shorts basically from the start. Thank you, Franz. Appreciate it. Prime Bottas and Prime Perez in midfield will be unstoppable. That's very true. But they're no longer prime, unfortunately. I think that's the problem, isn't it? If you're Cadillac, you're looking at a Bottas who's been out of it for a year, and then before that was at Stake Sauber whilst they were absolutely floundering. And then Sergio Perez, who, you know, also has only been out for a year. I suppose you've got that perspective, right? If you go for those two, both of them have only been out of the sport for a year. Whereas other drivers you could pick, maybe either don't have experience in Formula One or have been out of it for a bit longer than that. And it's sort of how much do they want? Austria plus rain plus Max would have been wild. I think Max in the rain anywhere just seems to perform, doesn't he? But the drivers are coming to the grid. Yeah. DRS is disabled. Good to know. We're getting set up though. I'm just trying to see. There we go. I was trying to see if I could load up the tires that everybody was going to be starting on. And there we have it. Mediums pretty much across the board. A few softs scattered throughout. So everybody on mediums. Pierre Gasly, the first driver on a slightly scrubbed set of softs. So they would have been used in qualifying yesterday. Alonso on the medium tire as well. Although, oh yeah, he did do... Oh no, that was on the softs. He did do one lap on a set of mediums. There you go. That is why Fernando Alonso did that one lap on a set of mediums. Slightly scrubbed set, starting from 11th place. Alex Albon on the mediums, and then behind that come the soft compound tyres. So Hadjar, Colapinto, Behrman trying to make those moves early is what that tells us. Starting on the soft compound tyre means that you're going for moves pretty much off the start line, because if you don't make those moves within the first 2, 3, 4 laps, then those soft compound tires are going to start to fall away from you, and you lose that advantage of the sort of initial speed of those soft compound tires. Lance Stroll also starting on a scrub set of mediums, so Aston Martin clearly thinking that is the best way to go. Ocon on mediums, Tsunoda on mediums, Sainz on mediums, and Nico Hülkenberg also on softs. Is feeling like it's going to be sort of mediums and hards in terms of this race today. Although the tyres have been slightly difficult to predict over the last few race weekends. We have got the C3, C4, and C5 hard, medium, and soft compound tyres. But as I say, they've been slightly more difficult to predict over the last couple of weekends. We thought it was going to be a one-stop race last time out in Canada, kind of evolved into different strategies going in different people's directions, especially in Spain as well. The strategies sort of really played into it, and then there was the safety car at the end, so that really just shuffled the entire pack, didn't it? But we are ready and raring to go. In fact, let me double check that this is aligned correctly. It is not. I need to adjust the delay a touch, because Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are already coming around the first corner. There we go. Let's see if I can line that up a little bit better. Yeah, they're predicting 2 stop on that. Well, it's C1 and C2 tyres. So effectively, Carlos Sainz has stopped on the grid. Car is stuck in first gear. The car is stuck in first gear, says Carlos Sainz. Oh, it could be over before it's even started for Carlos. The marshals are trying to move the car, possibly. Lando Norris is going very slowly indeed around turn 5 and turn 6. But there is a yellow flag waving. Carlos Sainz is still there on the grid. And the drivers are being let know that Carlos has stopped. Oh, no. His engineer doesn't sound overly positive. His engineer said he's checking what he can do. So Carlos Sainz with an issue, stuck in first gear. Lando Norris is already coming down towards turn 9. And the problem is here that it's just such a short lap. Carlos Sainz hasn't really got a lot of time to deal with this, because Lando's going pretty slowly, and still Carlos Sainz has not moved, and the marshals are now going to move that car. So they're going to have to probably abort that formation lap and redo it. Yeah, aborted start. There it is. Aborted start because Carlos Sainz has come to a stop. The marshals now trying to move the car. Oh. And here we go. Carlos Sainz is away. Literally, as Lando Norris was about to go past where Carlos Sainz was, the marshals had to run out of the way, and Carlos Sainz has got that Williams started. He's back in, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a Carlos Sainz fan, he is moving. You can see it on the picture there, just going up towards turn 3. And they've already aborted the start, so they will at least do the formation lap again, I would imagine. You're not going to let 19 of the drivers sit completely still whilst Carlos Sainz does a lap of the grid, because those tyres will just be incredibly cold on those cars. So grid procedure is going to reset once again, and you can see the mechanics coming out onto the grid. But Carlos is indeed back in the race. But we are not underway yet. We are going to only have 70 laps then of the Austrian Grand Prix, because they are likely going to have to do a formation lap once more. And Carlos Sainz pulling into the pit lane, so is at least running, but they might have to check that that car. In the pit lane, please. I feel that the car is still braking so slow in. Yeah, Carlos not having a fun time inside of that Ferrari at all. The mechanics in the pit lane just getting away. And Carlos Sainz, oh, it's on fire. Carlos Sainz is on fire. The brakes at the back are on fire. He pulled into the pit lane and went towards the end of it. But yeah, those brakes, I feel like maybe the brakes are like stuck on or something, because that is a lot of energy going through those brake discs, and they are very much ablaze at this point. Luckily, because he's in the pit lane, there's a lot of people to run there and quickly put out those flames on the rear wheels of the car. And the formation lap is going to start in 10 minutes' time. So Carlos Sainz really has thrown a spanner in the works for the rest of the grid. They brought the tyre blankets for that Williams car. I think that's the opposite issue that they've got right now. Those tyres are absolutely melting hot. Sprinted all the way down to get to Carlos Sainz's car. I think that's going to be the end of Carlos Sainz's race, if I'm honest. I can't imagine them getting that going again. It was a pretty hefty blaze at the back of the car that they had to put out. He is now fine. Oof. Anyway, well, with 19 drivers still in play, Carlos Sainz's car is now being rolled back towards the Williams garage. Luckily, they didn't finish too high in the Constructors' Championship last year, so they haven't got too far to roll that car backwards down the pit lane. But the stewards have given us an extra 10 minutes before the race is set to start once more. So let's quickly change it to 70 laps worth of racing that we're going to have in front of us. I mean, there's still a lot of smoke coming from the back of that Williams car. I figured it would be all done and dusted now because they've got the fire extinguishers out, and fire extinguishers are still going into the rear end of that Williams car. No idea what is going on there. I mean, it is incredibly hot out there in Austria. Track temperature is now above 50 degrees Celsius. So maybe that is just helping almost for the flame to continue to blaze. And that is Carlos Sainz's race over before it began. We are 8 minutes away then from the start of the Austrian Grand Prix. Thank you for all the new subscribers rolling in there. Appreciate that. If you are new, hit that subscribe button. Very much appreciated. But Carlos is now out. Yeah, game over. Jump out. Carlos Sainz has been given the... there's no way that this is going to happen today, unfortunately, Carlos. James Vowles, head in hands. 19 drivers still in play. I mean, Carlos Sainz did only qualify back in 19th place, so unlikely that he was really going to be in the mix for much today. But that Williams car's quick, and it would have been nice to see what Carlos Sainz could do on a track where overtaking is possible, of course. Would he have been able to get that Williams car higher up the standings, really battle with Yuki Tsunoda or Esteban Ocon ahead? But won't get the chance to see that, unfortunately. So initially on the grid, Carlos Sainz was saying that the car was stuck in first gear. So there was some kind of issue with the gearing system of the car, or possibly the steering wheel not connecting how it should and enabling him to change the settings as it normally should. Then once we kind of got going, feels like the rear brakes were actually possibly the issue. Carlos Sainz going around that formation lap saying that he felt like the brakes were just stuck on throughout the entirety of it. Then when he peeled into the pit lane, came to a stop, and a pretty sort of hesitant stop at the end of the pit lane before both rear tyres then caught ablaze. So the driver's now being let know. You can see Isaac Hadjar there being told Sainz will not rejoin. He retires. So that is Carlos done and dusted. So sad for Carlos. Have a claim of most unlucky driver of the season over Alonso now. Yeah, Carlos has been pretty unlucky too. Basically, if you're Spanish, just don't buy a lottery ticket. If you're a Formula One driver and you're Spanish. And the Carlos Sainz fans still cheering him on. That's a lot of pictures of Carlos Sainz in Ferrari attire there, though. Someone want to tell them? Yeah, it's a little bit of a disaster for it, really. Why has Piastri got an investigation? That came from the lap to the grid. It was an incident where he was failing to follow the race directions instructions on maximum delta time, but it was reviewed. No further action, so all done for Oscar Piastri. No kind of penalty running his way. So don't worry if you are a Piastri fan. There's nothing to worry about. We are 5 minutes out, though, from the start of the Grand Prix. Am I streaming on Twitch? Not yet. Possibly starting from next week. Just wanted to do one stream with the new internet to check that it actually, works. Because I didn't have internet for like 10 days, I want to say. Because they messed it up the first time. So you never know. Gotta double check these things. Oh. And Fernando Alonso complaining about being sat on the grid. And that's the other thing. Yeah, Fernando making a good point there. The drivers have had to sit inside of the cockpit. They haven't been allowed to get out of the car. Just because the race start is aborted doesn't mean that they can hop out of the car once again. So all of those drivers have been sitting on the grid. You know, they are inches away from the track there. The track temperature is now soaring above 50 degrees Celsius, air temperature above 30. They've got a Formula One engine running behind them inside of the car. It's not a nice place to be, unfortunately, if you're a Formula One driver. And they've already now had 10 minutes inside of the car. Absolutely swelteringly hot. And George Russell making sure that the mechanics get the water that they need. There is a lot of sweat. They're professional athletes after all. So it's so weird to not have the track in the background. It will be in the background, don't worry. It's on the floor at the moment. It will come back sometime soon. Hopefully within the next week or so. I was going to try and get it up this morning, but just did not get the opportunity to do so. Spa is yet to come. It is indeed. Do I think Australian fans have it worse with the times? I mean, yeah. Well, there's a lot of European races in this middle portion of the season, right? Where for Europe, absolutely great. For everywhere else, it's a bit bad. But then there's other portions of the season, you know. Oh, Jurgen Klopp in the Red Bull garage. Does Jurgen Klopp still work for Red Bull? I know he was like head of Red Bull football, whatever. I think he's still doing that. Having left Liverpool at the end of last season, just before they went on to go and win the title. Gutted. Although, would they have won the title under Klopp? You never know. 2.5 minutes to go then until the start of the Grand Prix. As I say, the driver's looking uncomfortable inside of the cars. It is very, very warm indeed. And a lot of the drivers looking at the temperatures and looking at the fact that it is going to be sweaty inside of the car. When is it time? 2 minutes time. We are 2 minutes from the formation lap. We were supposed to start at 2 o'clock. A little bit of a delay because of Carlos Sainz. The drivers did a very, very slow formation lap. The problem was that it's a very short track. So even though Lando Norris was doing a very slow formation lap to the grid, there's only so slow you can really make it. And Carlos Sainz only just managed to get moving as Lando Norris was about to come around the final corner. Basically, as Lando Norris was about to overtake Carlos Sainz. Then Carlos's car died anyway when he got back into the pits. But by that point, the race start had already been aborted, and we had to just wait and see. Yuki Tsunoda there, starting 18th place. Only one car behind him now in Nico Hülkenberg, so doesn't have to worry about Carlos Sainz coming towards him at turn 1, although I would imagine Yuki Tsunoda is looking forwards rather than backwards when it comes to the start of this Grand Prix. The tyre blankets are now coming off of a few of the cars. See Lewis Hamilton's car there, tyre blankets being removed, or at least placed on top for the time being as the tyres finally touch the tarmac once again. And we are a minute away. Cars are lowered on the jacks. Mechanics are moving away. Tyre blankets being removed from Lando Norris's car and Lando being rolled back into position. Here we go then. 15 minutes late, but hopefully this race will be worth it. 70 laps of the Austrian Red Bull Ring circuit coming your way. And the formation lap is once again going to start in just a moment's time. 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris, Russell and Lawson just behind. It's going to be a tasty opening couple of laps. There is overtaking opportunities here. We saw it last year. Charles Leclerc actually dropping off Lando Norris. Norris getting away from the front a little bit more swiftly. Oh, And now Nico Hulkenberg is stopped at the back of the grid. Oh no, he's moving, he's moving. Oh my goodness me. I thought that was going to be back-to-back cars stopped on the grid. He eventually did get moving. Goodness me. Nico Hulkenberg giving me heart palpitations there. Formation lap then. Lando Norris just coming around towards turn 4. Of course, we saw a lovely little battle between Norris, Verstappen and Piastri through turn 4 last year in the sprint race. Lando Norris came out worst of it. And then similarly, in the race itself, Lando Norris came out worst of it once more. That into turn 3, though, with Max Verstappen. So Norris looking to get a little bit of gratification, a little bit of revenge maybe on the Austrian circuit, as he did not have the most fun weekend here last year, despite having pretty significant pace. It's gone well here in the past as Lando Norris. It's his to lose from pole position. Charles Leclerc starting behind him in second place. Piastri, his teammate and championship rival, starting in third place. Hamilton in fourth. Russell and Lawson starting on the third row of the grid. Verstappen and Bortoleto on 7 and 8. Antonelli and Gasly just starting inside of the points in 9th and 10th. We then have Alonso, Albon, Hadjar, Colapinto, Behrman, Stroll, Ocon, Tsunoda and Hulkenberg starting just outside of the points as well, with Carlos Sainz retired from the Grand Prix, which I'm sure will update once the Grand Prix actually gets underway. Carlos Sainz, an issue with his brakes in the pit lane. Here we are then. George Russell has taken his spot. Liam Lawson ahead of Max Verstappen. That will be a lovely, tasty little battle between the two Red Bull powered cars. See which one of those comes out on top. Russell, though, ahead of both of them, at least for now. I swear, if the McLarens crash, I'm going to crash out. Don't hold your breath. It's Oscar Piastri behind. Not starting side by side, though, as the medical car then takes to the back of the grid. The green flag is waved. We're going to have 5 red lights, and then we are going to be underway here in Austria. And here we go. Lando Norris up towards turn 1. Gets away quite well. Piastri, though, peeling to the right-hand side. Norris comes across to defend from Leclerc. And Piastri then takes it around the outside. So Piastri up into second place. Caught Charles Leclerc sleeping. So did George Russell. So both of the Ferraris losing a position. But Hamilton now trying to get back at George Russell. So is Max Verstappen right alongside. Oh, and someone's gone super deep and taken out Max Verstappen. I think it's Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli's gone super, super deep. He's locked up into turn 3 and spun Max Verstappen's car. So Antonelli and Verstappen still stationary at turn 3 as we continue on. Norris leads from Piastri. George Russell still side by side with Lewis Hamilton, the ex-Mercedes teammates. Hamilton trying to go around the outside and makes his stick. Hamilton with a brilliant move through the middle sector, and then the safety car is dropped. So the safety car stopping that little battle between Russell and Hamilton that was playing out in the middle of the pack. But Kimi Antonelli wiped out Max Verstappen there and really shuffled around the pack. So it is going to be Verstappen, Antonelli and Sainz, 3 retirements from the Grand Prix before we've even completed a lap. And Max Verstappen, the face of Red Bull at the Red Bull Ring, only managed 2 corners before he was wiped out. Not his fault at all. Kimi Antonelli locking up there into turn 3. Went really, really deep. Max Verstappen gives a wave to the crowd. And that's the end of his weekend and possibly the end of his title challenge. I was talking about the fact that I think if Max Verstappen finished outside of the top sort of 5 or 6, it would be a really, really tough. Oh, as they're now having a little chat about it, Max Verstappen nods. I think he knows, there was nothing that he could have really done about it. And there's no animosity between the two of them. Kimi Antonelli apologizes, explained what happened, that it was just unfortunate that Max Verstappen was the driver that was in the way, sort of wrong place, wrong time. But as I was saying, I think if Max Verstappen finished outside of the top 5 or 6 today, with the McLarens looking so strong, it was going to be the end of any kind of championship hope. And that is it. Let's have a little replay of this. Antonelli actually gets away pretty poorly, yeah. Gets overtaken. I think he's just a bit overzealous, is Antonelli. Trying to maybe carry a little bit too much speed down towards turn 3 because he had quite a poor start at turn 1. Charles Leclerc gets covered off by Lando Norris, and that opens the door to Piastri. That's how Piastri managed to move up into second place, because Norris comes across, and then Piastri even does have a look at his teammate. Lando Norris, though, doing what Max Verstappen did to him last year and just closing the door. And lucky that it was only the 2 of them that were collected by that, to be honest. Max Verstappen does a full 180 as he gets the rear end of his Red Bull car collided with by the Mercedes. There's an RB to the side there as well. I think that's Liam Lawson that has to evade and get out of the way. That opened the door to Pierre Gasly getting into 6th place. Alex Albon, by the way, if you're a Williams fan, is now up into 7th place. Bortoletto managed to stay where he was in all of that chaos. Lawson down into 9th. Alonso up into the points. And Colapinto just 1 position away from the point scoring places. There you go. Is it Isaac Hadjar that was maybe caught up in it? Because Isaac Hadjar has pulled into the pits. And I think Hadjar, therefore, maybe going for a bit of a weird strategy, or maybe Hadjar was... No, I don't think there was any contact with Hadjar there. I think he's just forced incredibly wide, of course, to make sure that he doesn't collide with them. We actually saw something very similar to this in the Formula 2 race yesterday. If you were watching that before qualifying, saw a big collision down... Well, 2 big collisions down into turn 3. Safety car is going to be in this lap then. So to give you a rundown, Norris is still leading. Piastri moved up into 2nd place. Charles Leclerc losing out because of that. Hamilton now back up into 4th though. Russell into 5th, even though they were side by side through the middle part of the lap. Gasly a big winner, up 4 positions into 6th. Albon up 5 positions into 7th. Bortoletto managed to stay where he was in and amongst all of that chaos. Liam Lawson though, the big loser, dropped down 3 positions. Alonso, Pinto, Behrman now a lot closer to point scoring places, especially with Verstappen and Antonelli out of it. That does mean 4 of those positions are available. Yuki Tsunoda also not quite in the mix. So 5 midfield cars likely to score points this afternoon. And I said it was going to be very tight for those final point scoring places. It's now going to be even better. Lando Norris and Piastri getting us underway then. And the safety car is in. Norris has done well to escape from his teammate for now. Piastri not within striking distance going up to turn 3 this time around. Norris does come through and is safe at this point. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton just behind. George Russell already having a look at Lewis Hamilton. Oh, and the Haas has been sent wide. Looks like Ollie Behrman versus Colapinto's getting a little bit tasty. Colapinto holding on to 11th place for now. And here comes George Russell then. I said George Russell was having a little look at Hamilton. He goes for it straight away into turn 4. Hamilton then tries to cover him off through 5 and 6. And Hamilton holds on to the position for now. But George Russell looking incredibly racy inside of that Mercedes car. Does not want to sit behind the Ferraris for very long. DRS yet to be enabled, of course. Norris still leads from Piastri. Piastri within a second of his teammate. Once that DRS starts to come into play, will we see the 2 McLaren cars fighting for the victory? Colapinto, pushing Ollie Behrman a little bit. I think that was just the way that Ollie Behrman had to evade that any kind of collision there as they were battling it out. Here comes the DRS then. George Russell not within striking distance of Lewis Hamilton this time, but we know he wants to make that move. And George Russell saying Lewis closed the door under braking. So Russell not very happy with Hamilton's defensive maneuvers. Max Verstappen has made his way back down to the pit lane and is going to be making his way and probably watching the race from the Red Bull hospitality. Norris and Piastri lead They have left Charles Leclerc a second or so behind. Charles Leclerc just inside of the DRS train for now, but I don't think will be for much longer. Lando Norris and Piastri lapping a lot quicker than the cars behind. Does feel like it's just going to be the McLarens running away with it at the front and seeing who else can be in and amongst the battle. Piastri comes out of that last corner, DRS wide open, up the hill towards turn 1. Not close enough. But they are far enough away now from Charles Leclerc, so that DRS train has been broken from the front. Hamilton also outside of DRS range, so Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are going to be under threat from George Russell. Russell with that DRS advantage and wanting to get past the Ferrari sooner rather than later. Here comes Russell, half a second off Lewis Hamilton. Piastri is having a little look down in towards turn 4. He's tried to keep his teammate off. No, Lando Norris, aware of it, sees him coming and closes the door. I think Piastri trying to be a little bit opportunistic there, down towards turn 4. And we saw Lando Norris go for a move last time around in Canada, unorthodox in the hairpin, just trying to catch his teammate sleeping. Ended up with Lando Norris in the rear end of Oscar Piastri, of course, but was a really tight battle between the two of them all the way down. I think Piastri just trying to do a similar sort of thing there, coming from very far back. But Lando Norris held him off and they get round to the start-finish straight with Lando Norris still ahead of Piastri. Piastri, though, still running, and the fastest lap does go to Oscar Piastri. Does have that DRS advantage all the way up towards turn 3, of course, and then down towards turn 4 as well. If you're going to make a move, he's got to make it quick. It feels like he's going for it early. Lando Norris pulling away. Doesn't want to be in that dirty air as Oscar Piastri, but knows that he can't pull the same trick twice. Piastri on the radio. And Piastri has been told, your call on the racing situation. So, I mean, that's pretty good from the McLaren team. Letting the two drivers race. Can't really give them anything else from that. Turn 3 incident involving Colapinto and Behrman noted. I don't think there was too much into that. And Behrman has managed to get past Colapinto in the lap since anyway. Just talking about those midfield cars behind this front race, because I think Piastri is going to slot in behind Norris for a moment now. Gasly up into 6th place. That would be a phenomenal return in terms of points for Pierre Gasly if he can get that sorted. Albon in 7th place just always manages to find himself inside of the point scoring places, doesn't he, Alex Albon? Just absolutely ridiculous, the start to the season that the Thai driver inside of the Williams car has been able to have. Gabriel Bortoleto still running inside of the points in his first Q3 appearance. 8th place, 4 points there for him. Would be wonderful to start his Formula One career. So, well, kick off his Formula One point scoring career at least. Liam Lawson a little bit frustrated in 9th, I'd imagine, but still inside of the points. And we've been talking about how he needs to get some points on Isaac Hadjar, who has looked phenomenal. And then Fernando Alonso, the wily old fox he is, has managed to sneak up into 10th place as well. Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli came together on the first lap, remember, at turn 3. They are both out of the Grand Prix. And Carlos Sainz, an issue with his brakes meant that he is out of the race too. So 17 drivers remain. Isaac Hadjar, the only driver to have stopped. Lando Norris now starting to stretch his legs a touch. Oscar Piastri still within DRS range, but not within striking distance, you wouldn't say. Gasly on the soft tyres is the interesting one as well, though. Gasly completed 11 laps on those tyres, technically, even though we've only completed 8 laps of racing. Did 3 laps of racing on qualifying yesterday. And here we go then. Oscar Piastri does just close the gap a little bit down in towards turn 4. Possibly just settling in for a moment, though. Does feel like there's not too much room to maneuver if you are Oscar Piastri at the moment. Lando Norris did very well to keep him at bay down in towards turn 3 on lap 1. And then also even with Piastri going for that opportunistic move into turn 4, managed to close the door pretty substantially. On board with Alex Albon then. Having a little look, and Albon does indeed make a lovely move up the inside of turn 3 on Pierre Gasly, and Albon is now best of the rest once again. It feels like Albon is always best of the rest. A little bit opportunistic to be there at this moment in this race, but the good season start continues for Alex Albon, and we're almost halfway through the season, so the first half of the season has been phenomenal for Albon. And here we go then. Rear wing wide open for Piastri. He's within half a second again. Maybe just gave himself a little bit of clean air for a couple of laps there, Piastri, but is right underneath the rear wing of his teammate once again. 2.5 tenths separate the two McLarens. And he is choosing a little bit of just a chance. Just wants Lando Norris to know that any slip up, I am right there behind you, doesn't he? Doing everything that he can to remind Lando Norris that he is right there. Pressure is building. Half a second between them as they come across the line, and Piastri is super tight. Lando Norris goes a little bit deep through turn 1. This could be it then. Oscar Piastri tries to pull to the right-hand side of the track. Lando Norris tries to cover him off, but Piastri's just got the speed, and Piastri, he's there. He's up into first place. Lando Norris then tries to come back at him towards turn 4. Norris will get the DRS, and Norris had the tighter line through turn 4 as well. I don't know if Piastri's going to be able to hold on, has to yield, and Lando Norris moves, but then Piastri has the inside line going into turn 5. Not quite. He's going back at him though, turn 6 maybe. Lando Norris runs a little bit wide, but Piastri tried it once more, and Lando Norris was able to just about rescue that through turn 3. I think if Piastri had just gone a little bit tighter through turn 3, he'd have got that move done. But Lando Norris continues to lead. This is going to be a real back and forth between the two papaya cars. Oscar Piastri, DRS open again as they come across the start-finish line. The thing is, in the Constructors' Championship, they're so far ahead that it's might as well let them race from McLaren's perspective, because the Constructors' Championship is effectively won. And you're not going to convince either of these two to play the team game today, I don't think. Lando Norris done a little bit better there. Ollie Behrman has come into the pits as well. Started on the soft compound tyre. Managed to get up towards the points. Was running ahead of Franco Colapinto. But still looking at this battle between Lando and Oscar. Oscar still waiting and watching. I think just knows that he can't go for a move every single lap. Here comes Gabriel Bortoleto on Gasly now. And Gasly, those soft compound tyres on the Alpine starting to wane away as Gabriel Bortoleto goes up the inside of turn 4. And Bortoleto then has to defend through turn 5 and turn 6. Gasly doesn't want to give up this place. The Brazilian beautifully through turn 6. And puts the Alpine behind him for the second half of the lap. And Bortoleto up into 7th place. Here comes Piastri then. Piastri now 8 tenths of a second behind his teammate. Last time he went for it, he was only half a second off Lando across the start-finish line. So I think we're waiting for that once again. Piastri is continuing to be quick though, and Gasly does eventually peel off into the pits. Gasly deciding that those soft compound tyres are just starting to go off a little bit too much. Let's see what he comes out onto. Behrman went for some hard compound tyres. Isaac Hadjar went for mediums. Interesting. Nico Hulkenberg has also come into the pits to get rid of those tyres on the Stake Sauber car. And I think starting on the soft compound tyres was maybe a bit too much of a gamble for some of those drivers. They don't seem to be working too well, as Ocon has now dispatched Franco Colapinto as well. And Colapinto starting to fall back down to 11th place once more. Still going to be a little while until these medium tyre runners come in though. The track temperature, incredibly high, is going to play into that degradation. Track temperature 49.2 degrees Celsius. Air temperature of 30 degrees as well. It is swelteringly hot at Spielberg this afternoon. Lando Norris making his way up the hill of turn 3, looking in his mirrors once again, knows that his teammate isn't too far behind, still within a second, and it's, again, just if Oscar Piastri is going to be able to make a move, those tyres are going to be getting very hot indeed in the dirty air in the wake behind Lando Norris's car. Piastri needs to sort of go for it sooner rather than later. Colapinto's come in for a slow stop, 3.9 seconds the stop from Colapinto there. But both of the Alpines in and back out again. I imagine Colapinto... Oh no, he's gone for the medium compound tyre. So Alpine splitting the strategy. And that's not being investigated any further. Not really sure why they're playing that. Ollie Behrman versus Pierre Gasly is playing out as we see at the moment. Oh, and here we go. Piastri right underneath the rear wing of Lando Norris. Could have made a move down in towards turn 1, but decides against it. He's waiting. He's got the DRS. He's millimeters behind Lando Norris as they come across the start-finish line. Don't know whether Lando Norris had a little bit of a poor turn 10. Piastri then thinks about it down towards turn 3. No, I think he's going to go for it into turn 4 instead. Downhill towards 4 they come. Oscar Piastri with the DRS wide open. Lando Norris, rear wing mirrors in his full of a McLaren car. And Piastri not this time around. It was a good line from Lando Norris, I think, that just kept Oscar Piastri at bay there. But Piastri was almost hesitant in towards turn 1. I think if he does go for the move into turn 1, then Lando Norris obviously has the DRS down towards 4, and he knows that it's then a really tricky battle between the two of them. So I think Piastri a little bit hesitant there, which is not something that we normally see from the young Australian. Coming across the line once again to start lap 16 of this Grand Prix. Norris from Piastri still. Leclerc and Hamilton have been left in the dust. Leclerc and Hamilton basically all by themselves. George Russell also has fallen adrift of Hamilton. Unfortunately, wasn't able to continue that battle as the race continued. And then we have a big gap to Bortoleto as well. It's currently running in 6th place, Gabriel Bortoleto, as Alex Albon has now pitted. Isaac Hadjar now at the front of that pack, although pitted a lot before the rest. Oh, and Albon is into the pits again. Albon into the pits again. I think there might be a problem with the Williams car. Both Williamses could find themselves out here because Albon pitted, switched tyres, and is now in again. So Albon now all the way at the back of the pack. Was running best of the rest, and maybe I jinxed him saying that it was... Oh, and that's why Lando Norris went really wide at turn 10, and that's what nearly gave Oscar Piastri the opportunity at turn 1. I think Oscar Piastri deciding against it, though. And there is Alex Albon retiring from the race. So Albon was running in 6th position, was best of the rest once again, as he seems to find himself a lot at the start of the season. But the Williams car, something wrong inside of that Williams this weekend. Both of them now out of the race with mechanical faults. And that's something that they'll definitely want to look at before the Silverstone Grand Prix. Home Grand Prix for the team, of course. Sort of a home Grand Prix for Alex Albon as well, although he races under the Thai flag. Lando Norris on the radio. Opportunity, make turn 6 apex, Lando Norris is being told. Makes it more difficult for the other car. So Lando Norris basically being told on the radio to absolutely nail turn 6. And if he can do that, then he's able to keep Oscar Piastri at arm's distance. Piastri's tyres are surely going to be screaming from this, though. Continually battling. Yuki Tsunoda is making a move. And has he get himself up into 10th place? Oh, my goodness me. A little bit of wheel banging between Yuki Tsunoda. Oh, and a bit of damage possibly to the Red Bull car. Tsunoda versus Stroll. Tsunoda is now running in 10th and in the points, but that is going to be investigated by the stewards, as we can see pop up there. Stroll and Tsunoda now on the investigation sheet as well. Collision has been noted. Lando Norris versus Piastri still playing. George Russell is going to box for George Russell in all of this then. So the Mercedes car is coming in. And the top 5 is playing out pretty much as we expected, really. It was whether or not Russell could properly get in the mix with the Ferraris. Doesn't feel like it. Hamilton's still not nearly the pace of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc still dominant inside of that Ferrari team, as you'd kind of expect it to be. Leclerc, though, 5.5 seconds off of these two. It is going to be a 70-lap sprint between these two, it feels like. Neither of them letting up any inch. And even with the tyres that are going to be absolutely screaming at them, the pace of this McLaren car is just so much better than the rest. And I was worried about this, like from a neutral perspective, I guess, that now McLaren have brought another upgrade to this car. Have they gone from sort of clearly the fastest to now just obscenely faster than the rest? And I think the first 20 laps of this race are saying absolutely, because these two have been battling. They've been costing each other time. You know, they've been going wide at corners, pushing each other. And Charles Leclerc is still over 6 seconds adrift. So the McLaren car looking insanely quick at this point. Yuki Tsunoda has peeled into the pits. I wonder how much damage there actually was to that Red Bull. Lando Norris being told on the radio, we are happy to pit. I suppose they've got a nice little gap. Where's that gap got them? So yeah, if they were to pit, they'd come out behind Fernando Alonso. Is that a nice little gap? I guess because Alonso, Ocon, Stroll, they're all going to be pitting fairly soon anyway. So he wouldn't have to worry about the likes of Hadjar or anyone like that. So I can understand why Lando Norris is being given that information. 20 laps into 70 here, and every single lap, Oscar Piastri is continuing to just let his teammate know that he is right there in his wing mirrors, and he maybe goes for a move. Oh, and he locks up massively. Oscar Piastri, a big lock up on the front left, going down in towards turn 4. And Lando Norris holds on to the lead. Piastri pushing his car just a little bit too far there. And Norris is going to box. Norris box is the call. Piastri then, what kind of pace have you got, my friend? They have got the opportune, because they are still the front-running car, they are allowed to pit first. And Lando Norris deciding that now is the time for him to pit. Goodness me, that was close, wasn't it? That could have been very, very devastating for the McLaren team. Oh, and it's a little bit slow for Lando Norris in the pit stop. Not ridiculously, a 3.1 second stop. It's not egregious, but it's just a little bit slow. Felt just a touch off there inside of the McLaren car. Gabriel Bortoleto is actually just making his way down towards turn 1. Lando Norris should be fine, though, as you do get sort of let out around turn 1. Bortoleto, though. Bortoleto on for like a 6th place finish here at the moment. Absolutely ridiculous, but Lando Norris has managed to pit and come out in that window. And Oscar Piastri being told, let's see how the pace is in free air. Piastri saying, though, I have a flat spot. So is he going to lap straight away after? Oh, it was a big lockup from Oscar Piastri as well. Let's have a little look at this pit stop from Norris. Was one of the tyres just a little slow? Front left tyre, just a touch slow. Again, not egregiously slow. Don't think it's going to matter too much in this battle. But Oscar Piastri is continuing on, not covering off. Thought Piastri might come in. But no, he's carried on. Giving Oscar the chance. Let's see what Oscar's 110.6. Lando Norris, obviously, with the pit stop. So let's see what Piastri's. And Piastri, not pleasant, but it's okay. So he is continuing on. Bortoleto in from really positive position. George Russell just making his way up there. And Nico Hülkenberg, his teammate, is just going up the inside of Ollie Behrman as Bortoleto then comes out in between them. So Bortoleto and Hülkenberg now sandwiching Ollie Behrman in this. Ollie Behrman's just woken up. Hülkenberg and Behrman have both stopped, though. So Gabriel Bortoleto losing out a little bit there. He's going to have fresher tyres, but is behind two cars that have already pitted. So that's not an amazing stop for Gabriel Bortoleto at all there, really. Just looking at those other cars. So Lawson, Alonso and Stroll, the cars yet to have stopped. Alonso and Stroll were always going to go a bit longer, hence starting on the slightly scrubbed set of mediums. Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, the other three yet to have stopped. And Lando Norris did decide on the hard compound tyre. Let's have a look at Lando Norris's pace. Lando Norris nearly a second quicker than Piastri on that last lap. So seems silly. And Piastri, question, better to be 4 behind with better delta or 1.5 behind? And Oscar goes for the 4 behind with delta. So Piastri wants to go that little bit longer, and therefore he'll come out that little bit further behind Lando Norris, but will have a better tyre delta is what they're talking about there. As Gabriel Bortoleto now battling with Ollie Behrman, the two rookies, side by side with one another, battling for 12th place at the moment. Here comes Bortoleto down towards turn 4, the fresh medium tyres compared to the Haas, and gets that move done. Gabriel Bortoleto is going to move ahead of Ollie Behrman and up into 12th place. Behrman down into 13th. And then I'm sure Hülkenberg won't keep his teammate behind for too long. So Bortoleto is going to be back behind Pierre Gasly, but again with a much better tyre delta. Lando doing a good job. Oscar's pace hasn't really picked up, and that's very true. Oscar now 11.2 to Lando Norris's 10.0. So again, a second off the pace. And Oscar Piastri is eventually going to box. So it is box the call for Oscar Piastri. Of course, Oscar needs a good stop here, though. They say, you know, is it better to come out 4 seconds, blah, blah, blah. But he's going to need a good stop, and he's coming into the pit entry, and here comes Piastri then. Into the pits he comes. Needs a very swift stop. In fact, I'm just going to quickly change this. Oh, and it's slow again. It's even slower. Oh, it's a really poor stop. 3.4. That left-hand side, again, just slow. And Lando Norris ahead by a considerable margin. Lando Norris has disappeared into the distance there. And Piastri, who was right underneath his teammate for that entire first stint, has just kind of left it a couple of laps. Maybe a bit too late. I know that he's got 4 laps on his teammate's tyres, I guess. But it's 5.5 seconds, the gap between Norris and Piastri. Nearly 6 seconds. Ouch. I was late getting here. What happened to Max? He got collided with by Kimi Antonelli, unfortunately. Antonelli went super deep. Oh, and it's the front left. Whoever's on front left for McLaren needs to have a little look at themselves, I think. Front left is slow on both stops. Charles Leclerc into the pits after leading for just a lap. And Lewis Hamilton is going to lead this Grand Prix then, unless Ferrari double stack. They do not. Hamilton takes over the lead. There goes Norris and Piastri as well. Charles Leclerc then just needs to be careful of Lawson and Alonso here. Lawson and Alonso still yet to stop. Haven't started on the scrubbed mediums. So they are going a lot longer. Gabriel Bortoleto on the radio. Bortoleto being told on the radio, your teammate will let you past, but only if you're within DRS range. And I think that's fair enough, isn't it? Bortoleto needs to get within a second of Hülkenberg for Hülkenberg to oblige. Hulkenberg still in a battle of his own, though. He's in a DRS train behind Gasly and Stroll. Hulkenberg ahead, battling with the Alpine of Gasly, and Gasly has just managed to get past Stroll, and Stroll now battling as well. Hamilton's box. It's a lovely little midfield battle playing out here. Hulkenberg making his way past Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll seems to be struggling. Bortoleto now up the inside of the Aston Martin as well through turn 5, and there goes Bortoleto ahead of Stroll. Stroll seemingly falling away as those medium tyres coming to the end of their life. Feel like they should have pitted Stroll maybe a touch earlier. Those mediums all over the place is the words I'm looking for. Hamilton has, though, pitted. Lawson now in a podium scoring place, Liam Lawson. If there's a red flag right now, you'd be absolutely delighted if you're a Liam Lawson fan. Unlikely at this point, but you never know. Never say never. Yuki Tsunoda running right at the back of the pack, even though Lance Stroll has come in. So Tsunoda now up into 15th. We are missing Albon, Verstappen, Antonelli, and Carlos Sainz from this race, of course. And Lance Stroll into the pits. Just way too late, unfortunately. Those completely fell away. Isaac Hadjar is now leading this group, but has done 24 laps on those medium tyres. Pitted very, very early indeed. Gabriel Bortoleto now also making his way past Pierre Gasly, and Gasly then comes back at him and decides to not give that position up too easily, but Bortoleto then able to tuck in and get himself ahead as they go through turn 7. Gasly running a little bit wide, allowed Bortoleto back up into 10th place. And again, Bortoleto will be on the radio saying, Nico Hulkenberg, feedback from the pit wall. The manoeuvre into turn 4 was too marginal. So Oscar Piastri being given a little bit of a slap on the wrist for that move into turn 4 and the big lockup that there was, being told basically, if you could, don't do that again. As Charles Leclerc then does get past Liam Lawson. So Lawson outside of the podium places. Gabriel Bortoleto is indeed let by his teammate. So Bortoleto up into 9th. But we're now looking at a very different race because Piastri is now not continually breathing down the neck of his teammate. They're doing almost identical lap times, the two McLaren cars. Of course, the delta in Piastri's favour, but don't know how much is going to be in Piastri's favour. Certainly not 6.5 seconds worth of delta between those tyres, unless the hard compound completely falls off of a cliff. Bortoleto now a second behind Isaac Hadjar. Bortoleto on an absolute screamer, by the way. Could get past Isaac Hadjar, be back up to best of the rest. Fernando Alonso is now peeled into the pit, so he's going to fall away from that top 10. Everybody coming through. Isaac Hadjar has also had to pit. Oh, sorry, it was Hadjar pulling into pits, not Alonso. Hadjar pulled into the pits. He's now going to go back towards the back end of the pack. Oof. Lewis Hamilton now trying to get past Liam Lawson as well. Lawson not making it easy at all. And Lawson using every little inch of track just to make it that bit more awkward for Lewis Hamilton to get past. Hamilton does eventually through turn 6 and 7. But Lawson making it as difficult as humanly possible. And a little bit of a replay, actually, of Hamilton versus Alonso. And Alonso had to back out a touch to let Lewis Hamilton past. Ollie Behrman, ran very wide at turn wide. Had to use the escape route. In 11th place, Ollie Behrman, but certainly not out of any point scoring opportunities at the moment. Lawson and Alonso still going. Feels like they're going for a one-stop strategy there in the RB and Aston Martin cars. Gasly on the radio. And Gasly really struggling with the balance of that Alpine car. No grip, Gasly says. No grip. I'm about to spin at every corner. So not having a fun time as Tsunoda has a little look at Franco Colapinto. Colapinto, though, keeps 13th place ahead of the Japanese driver. Tsunoda's going to have a little look again, maybe down in towards turn 4. It's going to be very close between the two of them. I think they touch, they do. And yeah, Colapinto is sent spinning at turn 4. Round he goes. Colapinto manages to keep it, I think, just outside of the gravel. But Franco Colapinto hit there by Yuki Tsunoda, and that's not going to help things at all. Tsunoda up into 13th, Colapinto 14th, but God, Yuki Tsunoda, that's the second time Tsunoda has been involved in a collision, and Tsunoda now, I think actually maybe coming into the pits, yeah. Tsunoda coming into the pits, maybe even damage to that car. Colapinto, I think he gave him enough room there. I think that's Tsunoda at fault. Oh, and just brushes the front tyres into the gravel, does Colapinto. It's a good catch from him. And they're having a good look at that Red Bull car. Tsunoda does come back out into the race, though. 10-second pit stop. They had to have a real look at that front wing of that Red Bull. And Tsunoda is just having an absolute nightmare again. Whilst Liam Lawson is running P5. I know Lawson on a very different strategy, and Lawson on the one stop. George Russell, though, 5.5 seconds adrift of Alonso and Lawson in this. Then Bortoletto another couple of seconds behind as well. So maybe Lawson and Alonso onto something here. Certainly going for something different. Lance Stroll wasn't able to make it happen. He started on the scrubbed mediums as well. But very, very tight indeed. Ocon and Behrman swapping positions. Ocon now up into 11th. Behrman down to 12th. Ocon also within DRS range of Pierre Gasly. No love lost between these two Frenchmen. Of course, teammates last year at Alpine. Gasly was chosen to stay. Ocon sent packing. And Ocon, now with DRS, peels to the left-hand side of the track. And Gasly is going to not give him too much room. But Ocon's then going to try and sweep up the inside of turn 5. Doesn't quite get it done this time. Ocon, though, not letting it lie. Through turn 6, I thought he was going to let it go, but he does not. And Gasly gets very close through turn 6 to Ocon. Ocon has to back out of it. And eventually they do slot into position. Gasly behind Ocon. Fernando Alonso goes up into 5th as Liam Lawson has finally pitted in that RB. First stop for Liam Lawson. Let's see where he shuffles out into. Ocon behind Gasly once more. I want to keep looking at this battle. Ocon right underneath the rear wing of Pierre Gasly going through turn 1. DRS is going to be open on that Haas car. And again, if there's two drivers you want to see battling, it's these two. They didn't really get on when they were Alpine teammates. And Gasly is going to have to concede here. Ocon so much more pace down towards turn 3. And Ocon ahead of his ex-teammate. And he'll be looking at the Alpine in his rear wing mirror. He'll be looking at Alpine, bottom of the Constructors' Championship. And he will be elated inside of that Haas car. There we are. 10-second penalty given to Yuki Tsunoda for causing a collision. If I can show you that. 10-second time penalty, causing a collision for Yuki Tsunoda. That comes from the incident between him and Colapinto. It did look like Tsunoda was kind of the driver at fault there, unfortunately, for the Japanese man. And Fernando Alonso now into the pits as well. So we are going to get a real look at the top 10, despite the slightly different strategies. Bortoletto and Hülkenberg, by the way, both up in there. Both of the Stakes Sauber cars running best of the rest. Got Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Bortoletto, Hülkenberg. When's the last time we saw two Sauber cars running 6th and 7th place on merit? Okay, yes, Antonelli and Verstappen did drop out of the race, and Albon as well. But both of the Stakes Sauber cars running 6th and 7th place. Ocon then behind in 8th place. Gasly has now dropped down to 9th. And Gasly, I think, has slightly fresher tyres than Behrman, so should at least have that run in. Although Gasly is now under pressure from Behrman, so even with the slightly fresher tyres, I think that Alpine just struggling here as Oscar Piastri now sets the fastest lap of the race. Has kind of slowly creeped into that, Oscar Piastri. 0.4 of a second quicker than his teammate, still 5.5 seconds adrift, so as we reach the halfway point of this Austrian Grand Prix, the gap is still considerable between first and second place. Charles Leclerc on a completely different planet to the front two, though. 13.6 seconds the gap to third place behind. Hamilton then 3.5 seconds adrift. You look at that, Russell. I know that we said that the Mercedes car might struggle here, but we're halfway through the race, and Russell is 14 seconds behind the Ferraris. That is a damning indictment on where that Mercedes car is in these hotter temperatures. And Ollie Behrman's going to have a little go at Pierre Gasly then for 9th place. Behrman goes up the inside for turn 3. Ollie Behrman, though, still under pressure towards turn 4. The move isn't done yet. Gasly doesn't want to give it up, but does have to. Through turn 4 they go. And I think Gasly conceding from Ollie Behrman, and Behrman up into 9. So Stake Sauber have both cars in the top 10. Haas have both cars in the top 10. Has there been a race since Haas has existed where both Saubers and both Haases have been inside of the top 10? And Pierre Gasly saying, check if something is broken, please. Just no pace inside of that Alpine, and getting frustrated now because he's watching cars that are on older tyres. Behrman pitted before Gasly, but just having so much more pace, so much more grip, and disappearing ahead of him. Behrman now through turn 1 and chasing after his teammate, Norris and Piastri. Norris just coming down the start-finish straight as well. And this is the other thing that's going to play into it a little bit. Starting to get towards the traffic is Lando Norris. Lance Stroll will be within eyesight of Lando Norris now as he's going up the hill towards turn 3. Isaac Hadjar now having a little look at Franco Colapinto as well, and Colapinto has to concede to Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar we haven't seen too much of inside of that RB. It's been Liam Lawson who's been flying the heights of the RB car this weekend. We know it's competitive in that midfield pack, but Lawson really doing the business, and Lawson currently 11th, Hadjar in 13th now. And ahead of that kind of duo that ran the different strategy, Lawson and Alonso, 11th and 12th place. They run the one-stop strategy. Alonso now on a slightly scrubbed set of hard compound tyres, Lawson on the hard compound tyre as well. I think they're going to try and go to the end on those. Going to be tricky though. Have to wait and see what kind of degradation there is on the hard compound tyre, especially for those middle of the pack sort of Behrman Gasly types that have been going that little bit longer. Hulkenberg also 24 laps on those mediums at this point. So the hot conditions will play into it. The thermal degradation on the tyres will be going off, and they'll just start to fall away from the car. Oscar Piastri, 5 seconds adrift now. Was another 0.3 of a second quicker, but you never know. Is Lando Norris just holding on to this now? Feels like Piastri maybe made a mistake there. I think if Piastri would have pitted just after Norris, like the lap after Lando Norris, he'd have been in a much better state. Decided to go for the tyre delta instead. Tyre delta isn't really helping him out too much at this point. Unless there's a safety car or something that really reels them in. I think it's going to be really tough for Piastri to close a 5-second gap on his teammate. Not sure if Lando can go deep enough on hards to finish on softs. That's also, yeah, maybe a good point. Maybe Oscar just going a little bit longer. I don't know if he's got any soft compound tyres to go onto, though. Would he have burned through them in qualifying yesterday? I didn't have a little look before I started. And there you go. Laurent Makis says indeed Liam Lawson is going to try and go to the end from where he is, and possibly Isaac Hadjar as well by the sounds of things. So Hadjar and Lawson They are on the tyres to go to the end. Most of these blue flags are doing mid to high 110s. So Piastri just being told that the traffic is going to play a part very soon. Colapinto and Stroll just ahead of Lando Norris having a bit of a battle. So they're going to drop to within range of Lando Norris very, very soon. And maybe just causing Lando Norris a bit of a headache already, because Piastri now down to 4.5 seconds as Gasly pulls into the pits. And what's going on with the Alpine? I mean, he's on those hard compound tyres for a considerable amount of time, but still the pace was pretty appalling inside of that French car. Gasly swaps onto the mediums and hopes for something a little bit different. Who do I think will win? Again, I think your money's got to be on Lando Norris here, but Piastri is certainly making it interesting. Wouldn't want to be a gambling man about it. What's going on with Tsunoda? Why is he always pitting every other lap in every other GP? I mean, Tsunoda, he's also got a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision with Colapinto. So his weekend is pretty much over, isn't it? Tsunoda's really just thrown it all away. Not that there was much there to begin with. I mean, he qualified in 18th place, so was always going to be an interesting one. Bortoletto, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Behrman all inside of the points. Ollie Behrman pitting. Behrman then, as I say that, Lawson and Alonso go ahead. Hadjar as well. So Behrman is going to have quite a considerable delta on the likes of Hadjar and Stroll, who are ahead of him, but he is going to have to get past them if he's going to finish inside of the points, because we know that Lawson and Hadjar are going to end on the tyres that they've got. Makes you wonder when Ocon will come in as well. Tsunoda manages to get past Colapinto this time around. Colapinto is in the pits, so Tsunoda now ahead of him once again. Leclerc and Hamilton also having to just deal with... Oh no, Leclerc's ahead. Hamilton now having to deal with getting past Colapinto. And this is where 2/3 of the way through the race, we're going to start to see a lot of traffic and a lot of little incidents between back markers and front runners starting to entangle. We've got Yuki Tsunoda, Behrman and Gasly between the McLaren and Ferraris. We've got Colapinto between the two Ferraris as well. It's all going to start to play a factor, especially when it comes to the front two and how quickly they can just deal with the traffic in front of them. Lando Norris now 3 seconds ahead of his teammate. Oscar Piastri really starting to make midway. I think, you know, obviously Lando is catching up to the back markers. Maybe that's the thing. Or maybe Piastri was correct to get that delta. I thought he made a little bit of a mistake, but who am I? Obviously not. Piastri now finding that little bit of extra pace. So 1 point. It's only a 1/10 of a second quicker than his teammate last lap, but Lando Norris inside of DRS range, and we'll get the blue flags to Lance Stroll as well. So Norris now ahead of Lance Stroll, which is very, very pivotal for Lando Norris in this, because he's now in clean air once again, where Piastri is going to be in the dirty air. So now Norris needs to get going whilst Piastri is still dealing with trying to get in front of Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll in the middle of the two, running at the back of the, well, not even really at the back of the pack, in 12th place. Just goes to show the pace that these two McLarens have got. They are lapping cars 2/3 of the way through the Grand Prix, and a good chunk of cars as well. Lance Stroll then, between the two McLarens. Let's look at this for Piastri. Is Piastri going to be able to get past Lance Stroll this lap? Because then he'd have only lost sort of half a lap to a lap behind Lance Stroll compared to what Lando Norris had. 3 seconds still the gap between Norris and Piastri. Piastri still behind Stroll as they go through turn 3. Surely the Aston Martin moves to the side for Piastri down towards turn 4. So pretty much exactly a lap later, that would be. If Piastri can get past him now. No, he is not. And yeah, now Lance Stroll ahead of Piastri still. Oh, that's... Come on, Oscar. If you're going to make this interesting. needs to get past Lance Stroll very, very swiftly. He is still quicker, though. He's only lost 0.3 of a second since being stuck behind Lance Stroll for those couple of laps. Hulkenberg into the pits then. So we are starting to see those drivers make their final pit stops. Hulkenberg, first of them. Bortoletto still running, then best of the rest in 6th place. Ocon still running as well. Hulkenberg is going to come out in front of Behrman still. Yes. Oh, bad news for Piastri, though. Hulkenberg now comes out between the two. So Piastri has now got to deal with not only Lance Stroll, but also Nico Hulkenberg. Piastri does get past Lance Stroll, but Hulkenberg now in between the two McLarens as well. And this is the stumbling blocks that you've got when you are the chaser instead of the chasee. Now looking at Oscar Piastri versus Nico Hulkenberg. The blue flags will be waving, but Hulkenberg needs to go pretty swiftly himself. Hulkenberg will be looking at the delta to Hadjar and the delta to Alonso ahead and those points that are available to the Stake Sauber team. He'll want to get some more on the board. 20 for him so far this season, Hulkenberg. Is Liam Lawson going to go to the end? Is Fernando Alonso going to go to the end? Most likely. So he's going to have to overtake them on track. Feels like Hadjar will probably go to the end as well there. So 7.5 seconds, the gap between Hadjar and Hulkenberg. So if Hulkenberg is going to get into the points, needs to make that 7.5 seconds up. Oscar Piastri now 3.5 seconds adrift, nearly 3.6 seconds adrift of Lando Norris. Hulkenberg still between the two of them. But Hulkenberg's pace is pretty decent. Does make you wonder what Piastri is going to decide to do at this point. Obviously has the delta on the tyres now, but does he try and maybe undercut? Is there an opportunity for him to pit and come out in a good chunk of free air and really get a run at some tyres? But then Lando Norris can kind of cover him off and be on easier going tyres for the rest of the Grand Prix? Or does Piastri try and go as long as possible, wait for Norris to blink first? Maybe, as we sort of mentioned, go on to a set of softs at the end of the Grand Prix. Although the softs didn't look incredible on the guys that tried it at the beginning. Nico Hulkenberg still between the two McLaren cars. That gap increasing because of it. Lando Norris in fresh air. Piastri being stuck behind Nico Hulkenberg. Norris, Piastri, Leclerc then are top three, but daylight between Piastri and Leclerc. 13.5 seconds, the gap between the McLarens and the Ferraris. Just a ridiculous lap that they've got right there. Hamilton then 6 seconds adrift as well. George Russell, 21 seconds off the back of the Ferraris. I know he's now peeling into the pits as well, but George Russell not having a weekend to remember, really, considering that brilliant win last time out in Canada. Does not look quite with it this weekend. The high temperatures not playing into the favour of the Mercedes car at all. Kimi Antonelli explaining his scenario, just locked up basically into turn 3, collided with Max Verstappen, both of them out of the race on lap 1. Alex Albon then retired after that as well. So 4 drivers have retired from this Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri still behind Nico Hulkenberg. Just goes to show the pace of Nico Hulkenberg is actually pretty decent. Hulkenberg on fresh tyres compared to Piastri on 22-lap-old hards, sorry. So Piastri is finally going to get past Nico Hulkenberg. And that gap up to 4 seconds then. So it did cost him a second or so there, Piastri. Was 3 seconds behind Lando Norris. Now up to 4 as they get through that traffic. Norris will be still within sight though, especially through this middle part of the lap. Lando will be right to the left-hand side of Oscar, and Oscar will be looking over at that race lead, contemplating whether or not he should have gone for it when those sort of half-hearted moves happened towards the beginning of the race. Tried to keep his teammate within that touching distance, then deciding against it and going for a different strategy. Lewis Hamilton started 4th, running 4th, and all by himself, really, in the middle of the pack. 3rd place Leclerc, 4th place Hamilton looks locked in. Bortoleto running 5th. Might have to pit again, or surely will have to pit again, Bortoleto. 25 laps done on those mediums. Ocon 27 laps on the hards. It's Lawson and Alonso that are the 2 drivers that look like they won't pit again. George Russell has come out behind them, so Russell's going to have to get past Alonso and Lawson if he wants to finish ahead of them on track. Hadjar also continuing on 18-lap old. Oh! And the Ferrari, I think that's Hamilton, is indeed, goes very deep into turn 3 and makes a mistake. Loses a solid chunk of time through there. Bit of a lock-up down in towards turn 3 from Lewis. Oh, and Piastri also made a mistake through turn 1 and had to go wide. So Piastri then losing another 3 or 4 tenths to his teammate. Now above 4 seconds, the gap between the two. Tiny little mistake from Piastri on lap 48 of this Grand Prix, but those do count, and those will cause you issues towards the end, especially if he is only 3 or 4 tenths adrift of his teammate. He'll be thinking back to that. Ollie Behrman having a look at the inside of Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll looks like a sitting duck in this Grand Prix. And Ollie Behrman back up into 12th place and now hunting down Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg 9 seconds off the back of Isaac Hadjar. Needs to catch up to him. Hadjar feels like he's going to try and go to the end on those tyres. Hülkenberg, though, on much fresher set of mediums. And Lando being told on the radio, doing a good job. It's going to be tough when they get towards Isaac Hadjar. Definitely is. Isaac Hadjar just up the road of Lando Norris now, coming through turn 1. And Lando Norris, your race leader. Charles Leclerc, box. So the Ferrari's behind, going a little bit early. 21 laps left to go. Considering they pitted after the McLarens in the first stint, pitting before the McLarens in the second stint. Is fair enough. Oh, good stop from Ferrari there. Charles Leclerc in and out. 2.4 second stop. Yeah, there we go. Charles Leclerc pitting obviously opens up the avenue for Lando Norris to pit. It was Charles Leclerc, the only driver really within any kind of, well, within the same postcode of the 2 McLaren cars, now is pitted before them anyway. And Gabriel Bortoleto comes in for his final pit stop. So where's he going to come out? Surely ahead of Hülkenberg is sort of where he wants to be. Hülkenberg just coming around the final corner. 2.2 second stop from Stake Sauber is a touch from them. And Bortoleto is indeed going to be ahead of Oscar Piastri. And Piastri's shaking his head at this point, surely inside of that McLaren car going, why on earth do these Stake Saubers keep appearing out of the pit lane in front of me? Bortoleto actually moves out of the way of Piastri already. Hamilton pits. Oh, and Hamilton saying he doesn't want to stop, but Ferrari saying box. I mean, it's not going to make a difference, Lewis. Let's be honest, mate. You're miles away from your teammate. You made a mistake into turn 3, which cost you another couple of seconds. Your race is done and dusted. Get your fresh tyres on and do 20 more laps. Like, Ferrari just... Hamilton being a bit pedantic there, I think. Lawson then up into 5th place. Is going to go to the end, Liam Lawson. It could be an absolute touch from Lawson and Alonso here if they do manage to go to the end and get all the way on these hard compound tyres after a very long first stint. Maybe the one stop was the way forwards. Russell closing in on them, though. 1.6 seconds now, the gap between Russell and Alonso. Surely Russell will get himself up into that top 5. It's just whether Bortoleto behind can really find the pace. Bortoleto will have Piastri in front of him to hover around and try and copy. So just feels like who's got to pit? So just the McLarens, right? Behrman letting Ocon past. Stroll's pitted. Gasly's done. Tsunoda's done, surely. Yeah, it is. Literally just the 2 McLaren cars that are left to really pit for strategy purposes. Both Saubers inside of the points as Lando Norris does come in. Lando Norris into the pits then. Piastri is finally going to lead the race once more, although not in the way that he would have wanted to. Piastri in, Lando Norris in, Piastri released, and finally actually gets a bit of free air, does Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris is now released, surely will get out ahead of Tsunoda and Colapinto. That's the only thing that could cause Norris a headache. Nope, he's absolutely fine. Clear of Tsunoda. And then Piastri, being told, should be in at the end of this lap. But then Piastri is going to come out behind Tsunoda and Colapinto. So that's not going to help him out either. All this traffic has really played against Oscar Piastri. Piastri not happy at all about that. Not much he could have done about it, but it does just feel like every single time Oscar Piastri comes around turn 1, there's a different back marker who's just ahead of him. It was Stroll, then Hülkenberg, then Bortoleto. It's going to be Colapinto and Tsunoda likely once he pits here, but Piastri does indeed pit. Lando Norris only 16.3 seconds behind. Little bump in front of the McLaren garage, which they had a little look at the beginning of the weekend. It's a good stop. Lando Norris, they're going very quickly indeed, and Lando Norris is going to be comfortably ahead of Piastri. So whether Piastri comes out ahead of those 2, there's Tsunoda and Colapinto. Tsunoda and Colapinto both ahead of him. And that is an absolute nightmare for Piastri. Comes out in traffic that are battling with one another. He's going to have to watch Tsunoda and Colapinto go wide. The blue flags are going to be waved. And Piastri's going to be caught up in it. And Colapinto isn't moving out of the way. And Piastri has to then move onto the grass for Colapinto. Colapinto was trying to race Tsunoda. Wasn't aware that Piastri was right to the right-hand side of him. And Piastri pitting at that point in the race, for me, just feels like an absolute travesty of a decision. And now he's lost out another couple attempts because he's had to deal with Colapinto and Tsunoda going side by side for 16th place. Tsunoda and Colapinto go... Tsunoda goes super deep into turn 3, then cuts back in. So Piastri has to deal with. And Colapinto is thinking about getting into the slipstream of Tsunoda, but Piastri is to the right-hand side of him, and Piastri has to dip all 4 tyres onto the grass. Colapinto there has caused absolute havoc for Oscar Piastri. That is not what you want to see if you're an Oscar Piastri fan. Colapinto being noted, forcing another driver off the track, but it's a little bit too late, isn't it? It's too little too late. 4.5 seconds the gap then. And Colapinto does manage to get ahead of Yuki Tsunoda now then, and Tsunoda back down into 15th place. But when you're battling for 15th place, I think you move out of the way of the driver who's literally fighting for the win of the Grand Prix. I think Piastri's just kind of had all of the problems go his way, hasn't he? Feel sorry for Piastri. He's having a pretty tough time of it. He's had so much traffic to deal with in comparison to Norris, and then also now an absolute annoyance of Colapinto. Is though 3.5 seconds adrift and has just done the fastest lap of the race there, Oscar Piastri. Maybe he's got the bit between his teeth now. He's seen that the battle between Tsunoda and Colapinto cost him. And now trying to reply. Tsunoda and Colapinto again at it, though, into turn 3. Not had enough of each other, those two. Did collide together at turn 4. That got Yuki Tsunoda his 10-second time penalty. So, again, don't know why he's really battling for the position. He's got a 10-second time penalty to deal with. But there we are. Oscar Piastri, 3.3 seconds up behind. Oscar Piastri would be like 1.5 seconds behind, maybe 1 second behind Lando Norris, had he not had to deal with all of the traffic and rubbish that's happened in this race. Like, if back markers didn't exist, Piastri would be a lot closer to the front of this Grand Prix, but that is the way that you run it, and sometimes the strategy plays in your favour, sometimes it doesn't. So unfortunate for Piastri, just hasn't quite worked for him this time around, as Gabriel Bortoleto has caught up to Isaac Hadjar, and is now trying to get his way back through these point-scoring positions. Bortoleto will have 6th place in his eyes. Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson are also battling one another, which is going to play into Gabriel Bortoleto's hands. Bortoleto does indeed get past Isaac Hadjar and makes it look simple. Nico Hülkenberg is next in the queue to get past the Frenchman. And Fernando Alonso versus Liam Lawson is playing out in front. Oscar Piastri, another fastest lap, but that fastest lap is only 2.5 tenths or so quicker than Lando Norris, and there's just not long enough to go, is there? So 3.5 seconds, just too big of a gap to do in 14 laps, especially around the shortest lap of the calendar. Alonso versus Lawson then. And a 5-second penalty for Colapinto for forcing another driver off the track when the blue flags will have been waving for him. Alonso and Lawson seem to have played it perfectly today, actually. Fernando Alonso could end up finishing in 6th place here. He's got the pace on Liam Lawson. Half a second adrift of him and catching up to him every single lap. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg on Isaac Hadjar, and Hadjar now down into 10th place, just about holding on to a point-scoring place. But Esteban Ocon only 1.6 seconds behind, so Ocon is going to be chasing down Hadjar as we speak. Lando Norris has just managed to get past Ollie Behrman as well, so now Piastri's got to deal with another back marker that Lando Norris has been able to deal with instead. And I think the battle for the victory here is over. It's really unlucky from Oscar Piastri's perspective. I think they just got it wrong in very many ways. And Nico Hülkenberg getting ahead of Hadjar was a nice move ahead of Hadjar. Fernando Alonso not giving up, though, on 6th place. Lawson in the defensive manoeuvres. Lawson covering the apex at turn 3. DRS wide open, though, for Fernando Alonso. It's very tight indeed. Lawson having been denoted, and there comes Esteban Ocon, and yeah, Isaac Hadjar's tyres have fallen off a cliff now. He is a 1:12.1, the last lap time from Isaac Hadjar, 3 seconds slower than Esteban Ocon, who was behind him, and Hadjar is now outside of the points and will finish outside of the points today. That is unfortunate if you're an Isaac Hadjar fan. He did very well indeed, up until a point. Oscar Piastri, 2.8 seconds adrift, was a couple of tenths quicker than his teammate last lap. But again, I just don't think 11 laps or 12 laps is going to be enough for the Australian. Had things slightly played out differently, he might be right there, but not there at the moment. Stroll is not letting Hamilton pass. I mean, it's not going to make any difference to any of their days, unfortunately. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton have been locked in 3rd and 4th place for, let's say, 60 laps, pretty much, to be honest. Hamilton versus Russell, there was a little bit of a battle at the beginning, but Russell would have never been able to keep up with Hamilton in all of this. Now 24 seconds adrift is George Russell, who so very quietly got past Lawson and Alonso. whilst we were looking at the front runners and whether or not there was an opportunity at a race win for Oscar Piastri, but not the case at the moment. Piastri, I'll tell you what, 0.5 of a second quicker. Maybe I'll eat my words. If Piastri manages to do this, it will be one of the best final stints I've ever seen. He is 10 laps left to go. He is now 2 seconds adrift of Lando Norris. Has the tiniest of deltas. If he does this, he deserves the championship. Give him the championship now. He deserves it. But I think the problem is he's having to deal with back markers. So Piastri now dealing with Isaac Hadjar, I think that is between the two of them. Lando Norris catching the back of Esteban Ocon. Bortoletto not catching the Lawson-Alonso battle as quickly as I was hoping he would either. I think Lawson and Alonso might have played this really well in terms of their strategies. And Lawson and Alonso 6th and 7th place at the moment. But both of them inside of the points nonetheless. Bortoletto, his first point scoring place on the board. And Lando Norris being told the main pace difference is in the high speed, hopefully just due to traffic. Lando Norris on the radio asking for help. And Lando Norris does do an 8.2 and Piastri an 8.1, so Norris did find a little bit of pace in the traffic, but Ocon is now there for Lando Norris, so the two McLarens are actually getting very close indeed. Charles Leclerc could be in for a win here. Remember what happened last year when Lando Norris was battling for the victory at the end? Let's hope that it's not the two teammates that come together. Lando Norris, though, struggling for pace. He said it on the radio. Sonoda in the pits once again. Even with a 10-second penalty. Just to serve that penalty, I think. Lando Norris thanks Esteban Ocon as Ocon does move out of the way of the race leader pretty nicely. Is Ocon also going to move out of the way of Piastri? Yes, I think Ocon just realizing that he is sort of pretty much centered in 10th place. He's not going to catch up to the 2 stakes hours ahead or Lawson and Alonso. So Ocon just solidifying 10th place for himself and letting the 2 race leaders by pretty comfortably. So it didn't really cost either of those two any time. Norris then 1.7 ahead of Piastri. 7 laps left to play. Well, 8 laps left to play. If he does it, I'd be very, very impressed. As I say, I'm still not convinced yet. Where is Max in the standings? Oh, that's a good point, actually. Should we have a little look at what the standings would look like at this point? So Piastri, 18 points. Lando Norris, 25, obviously. Would mean that the championship would look as such. So nobody moving anywhere, apart from Nico Hülkenberg actually moving up a position. But yeah, Max Verstappen then 46 points off second place. Think it's done, isn't it? If you're a Max Verstappen fan, unfortunately. And here we are then. Piastri has not been able to gain on Lando Norris once again. Does feel like that lack of pace, as he said on the radio, was due to the traffic. Lawson, though, still in 6th place. Russell was able to get past them, but Alonso still stuck behind. Bortoletto, 4.9 seconds and was 0.8 of a second quicker than Alonso last time out. So it's pretty tight, isn't it, between the two of them? Oh, here comes Lando Norris on the radio. Lando Norris, a little bit of damage to our front wing, which is changing the balance. Nothing we can do. So a little bit of damage to Lando Norris's front wing. Lando Norris has managed to move past Hülkenberg, though. Hülkenberg now in the way of Piastri. And they are through traffic. They are going ridiculously quick. Like, look at Lando Norris's lap times, 1.86. Piastri in traffic, a 1.89. Charles Leclerc, 1.9. 1.10s from George Russell and Lawson, Alonso. Wow. Here we go then. Oh, Fernando Alonso. Having a little look at Liam Lawson again, but not this time around. Alonso versus Lawson still playing out. As I say, I think they just got it absolutely spot on with strategy, Alonso and Lawson. Going super long on that first stint on the scrubbed mediums. One-stop strategy actually maybe was the best strategy overall. Certainly the best for the midfield cars. Bortoleto, 2.9 seconds adrift, has a lot to do in the last 6 laps. I hope he kind of does, though. I'd love to see Bortoleto finish in 6th place. Certainly put in a stunning performance. Problem is, he's also got Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, who will soon be breathing down his neck. So Bortoleto needs a little bit of a rush on right now. Five laps to go. Oscar Piastri can see his teammate now, at least within a couple of seconds of him still, but just hasn't been able to close that gap anymore. 1.8, 1.7 seconds now. Lando Norris was on the radio asking for a little bit of help, but seems to be okay now. The gap between the two of them would still be 15 points to Piastri's favour in the Drivers' Championship, and would kind of separate both of them from Verstappen and Russell now. I think it is very much a 2-horse battle for the championship. Piastri, 18 points gained from this weekend. Norris is 25. Verstappen, obviously, 0, would mean George Russell is actually only 9 points behind Max Verstappen in the championship now. Charles Leclerc, 15 points for him and a podium place. We haven't really talked about the Ferraris and the fact that Charles Leclerc is going to finish on the podium, which is a very, very good finish. Antonelli, no points for him. Albon, no points for him. Ocon would gain a point, which would just keep him ahead of Nico Hülkenberg in 9th place in the standings. Hülkenberg will be up into the top 10. Hadjar down into 11th. Alonso, also a massive winner, would jump up to 13th place in the championship. Liam Lawson would also hop, skip, and jump over Yuki Tsunoda. Need corner discipline, turn 1 and turn 3. Lando Norris being told over the radio. Let's be honest, lads, it's over. 2 seconds in 3 laps just ain't going to happen. Just maybe telling Lando Norris to keep it comfortable for the final part of the race. Need a mistake from Lando Norris, basically, for anything to happen. And here we go, then. Bortoleto has caught up to the back of Fernando Alonso. That's the part we want. Yes! Here comes Bortoleto. Trying to take away a position from Fernando Alonso. 2-time world champion and manager ahead of him. Half a second the gap. DRS is going to be open for Gabriel Bortoleto. He's on 17-lap fresher hard tyres. But there is one driver who is defensively sound. It is Fernando Alonso. Bortoleto is quicker. He has got the pace. He's got the tyre delta. He's got everything in his favour. He just needs a little bit more time. And it's going to be really tight as he's only going to have a couple of laps to do it. Alonso's fallen off the back of Lawson a touch here. Lawson might have been given that position and might come home best of the rest. The highest scoring Red Bull car might be Liam Lawson. As I said, that would then put Liam Lawson ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in the championship. Here we go then. Bortoleto down towards turn 1. Has a little look at the Aston Martin. Doesn't go for it now. Bortoleto, round turns 1 and 2 they go. Still DRS wide open for the Brazilian. His Spanish manager ahead of him. The Aston Martin not making it easy. Bortoleto dives up the inside of turn 3 though. And it's a lovely move, but Fernando Alonso is going to come right back at him. They're going to be side by side down towards turn 4. Bortoleto then peels into the inside. Alonso's going to have the DRS, and Alonso has played that pretty perfectly. Bortoletto's trying to go up the inside of turn 4, maybe through turn 5. Just putting a wheel beside his manager to let him know that he's there, but has to concede that position, and Alonso stays in 7th place. Bortoletto, of course, started in 8th here, finished in 8th. I mean, if you'd have offered it him at the start of the race, he'd have absolutely snapped your hand off. But now he really wants to make that move past Fernando Alonso. But now Lando Norris has actually caught up to the back of him, and he's going to have to slow down to let Lando Norris past. Actually, Lando Norris is behind Fernando Alonso, so Fernando Alonso is going to have to slow down to let Lando Norris by. But I think Fernando might play this quite tactically. He's going to slot in behind Lando Norris here. Bortoleto then is going to be side by side, and this could be an absolute nightmare for Piastri if those two are battling in front. Both of them are going to get DRS. Fernando Alonso using that DRS to get alongside Lando Norris. Lando Norris nearly wiped out by Fernando Alonso. Bortoleto also having a look at Fernando, but not able to make it count. That was very tight indeed from Fernando Alonso. Got to trust yourself and trust your machinery. But Lawson and Alonso have done brilliantly well there. The strategy is played perfectly out for them. Bortoleto a little bit unlucky that he just wasn't quite able to have that final lap run at him. But Lando Norris comes around the final corner, should have won here last year, does win here this year, and it is a clean sweep from Lando Norris. A perfect weekend after what happened in Canada last time out. Oscar Piastri comes home in 2nd place for a McLaren 1-2, and Charles Leclerc a distant 3rd place, but a 3rd place nonetheless in his Ferrari. So Charles Leclerc takes the podium spot. Hamilton will come home in 4th. George Russell, 33 seconds adrift of Lewis Hamilton. Again, I think Russell getting the most out of that Mercedes car, but just goes to show that Mercedes was nowhere close to the Ferraris, and that Ferrari was nowhere close to the McLarens this weekend. It really was a very clear hierarchy in terms of those teams that will move Ferrari in front of Mercedes once again in the Constructors' Championship by 31 points. Liam Lawson comes home in 6th place. A really good drive from Liam Lawson, and a drive that he needed. There was a lot of pressure on Liam Lawson coming into these final 4 races before the summer break, because you imagine decisions are going to be made over the summer. Arvid Lindblad and whether or not Red Bull get him in sooner rather than later. But Lawson doing the job, getting a 6th place. Alonso behind in 7th. Bortoleto, his first points in Formula 1. An 8th place finish, 4 points on the board for him. Moves him to 19th, well, keeps him 19th place in the championship, but moves him ahead on points than Colapinto and Doohan behind. And Lando Norris celebrates. Hulkenberg in 9th place, as I was going to say, and Ocon down in 10th. Picks up the final point scoring place for the Haas team. Ollie Behrman just misses out. Hadjar, Gasly, Stroll, Colapinto and Tsunoda all finished the Grand Prix. Albon, Verstappen, Antonelli and Sainz, the 4 drivers that dropped out. Albon with a mechanical fault inside of his Williams car. Verstappen taken out by Kimi Antonelli on turn 3 of lap 1. And Carlos Sainz couldn't get his Williams going at the start of the Grand Prix. And then once he got it back into the pits, the tyres, the brakes, the rear brakes caught fire, and that was going to be the end of his race. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Massively appreciate you all dropping by. We will be back again next weekend for Silverstone. So back-to-back race weekends, Austria into Silverstone. Then, of course, 3 more Grand Prix until the summer break in August. Who will be at the top of the Drivers' Championship? Oscar Piastri is there by 15 points at the moment, but Lando Norris will not let it lie. Thank you guys so much again. If you are a member, I'll be live in 5 minutes' time for a post-race stream where we'll have a little chat about the Constructors, about the Drivers' Championships, and, of course, all the major talking points from the Austrian Grand Prix.